Dr. Han So-ra pressed her face against the dirty glass window of the observation deck. Below her, Nexus Station's underground market buzzed with activity. Aliens from dozens of worlds bought and sold everything from rare metals to illegal weapons. The smell of strange foods and the sound of foreign languages filled the air. So-ra did not want to be here. As a xenobiologist aboard the research vessel New Seoul, she studied peaceful alien life forms. But her friend Kim Do-jin had heard rumors about something impossible being held in the deepest levels of the station, something that should not exist. "Are you sure about this?" Do-jin whispered beside her. His hands shook as he held his scanner. "The energy readings are off the charts down there." So-ra nodded. "Whatever it is, it's alive. And if the rumors are true, we need to see this ourselves." They walked deeper into the station. The crowds grew rougher, the lights grew dimmer. Security, guards with too many eyes and not enough morals, watched them pass. Finally, they reached a massive arena carved from the station's hull. The roar of a crowd echoed from inside. "Welcome to the Blood Pit," shouted a four-armed alien at the entrance. "Tonight, witness the impossible. The last dragon in the galaxy burns our enemies to ash." So-ra's blood turned cold. Dragons were myths, stories told to children. The great reptilian race had died out 3,000 years ago, or so every history book claimed. They paid the entrance fee and found seats in the crowded arena. Thousands of aliens cheered and placed bets. In the center was a large metal cage. And inside that cage was something that took So-ra's breath away. The creature was enormous, 15 meters from nose to tail, with scales that shifted color from deep green to bright gold. Its wings were clipped short, leaving jagged stumps that had healed badly. Heavy chains wrapped around its neck, legs, and body. The chains glowed, with electric energy that made the creature flinch every few seconds. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the arena master, "I present Varric the Destroyer." So-ra watched in horror as guards with shock sticks forced the chained creature to stand. This was no destroyer. This was a prisoner. The intelligence in those ancient eyes was unmistakable. This was a person, not a beast. "Tonight, Varric faces 3 Kaltharan war criminals," the announcer continued. "Let us see if their armor can protect them from dragon fire." 3 heavily armed aliens entered the arena. They wore thick metal suits and carried energy weapons. They looked confident. They thought this would be easy. The crowd cheered louder. So-ra felt sick. A guard jabbed the dragon with a neural disruptor. The creature's head snapped back in pain. Its mouth opened, and white-hot flames poured out. The heat was so intense that So-ra could feel it from 50 meters away. The 3 warriors dodged, but 2 were caught in the blast. Their armor melted like plastic. They died screaming. The crowd loved it. They threw money and cheered for more violence. But So-ra saw what others missed. She saw how the dragon's eyes closed in pain after each burst of flame. She saw how its whole body trembled when the electric chains activated. Most importantly, she saw the profound sadness in its gaze when it looked at the burned bodies. This creature did not want to kill. It was being forced to. "We have to get out of here," Do-jin whispered. "This is too dangerous." So-ra could not move. She stared at the dragon as more fighters entered the arena. Each time, the same thing happened. The guards would shock the creature until it breathed fire. More beings would die. The crowd would cheer. After the 5th battle, the dragon collapsed from exhaustion. The chains had burned deep marks into its scales. Its breathing was labored. But its eyes never stopped moving, watching everything with ancient intelligence. "Next week," the announcer called out, "Varric will face a full squadron of Zenthari shock troops. Place your bets now." The crowd began to leave. So-ra remained in her seat, staring at the broken creature below. It raised its massive head and looked directly at her. For a moment, their eyes met across the arena. In that moment, So-ra saw something that changed everything. She saw recognition. She saw hope. And most heartbreaking of all, She saw a plea for help. "So, Ra, we need to go," Dojin urged. "The arena is closing." She finally stood, but her mind was racing. "Dojin, what do you know about the old dragon? Legends? Just stories. They supposedly ruled the galaxy long ago before some great war wiped them out." "Why?" "Because that's not just a creature down there. That's the last member of an entire civilization, and we're watching it being tortured for entertainment." Dojin looked confused. "Even if that's true, what can we do? We're just researchers. That thing could kill us with one breath." Sora thought about the sadness in those ancient eyes, about the way the creature had tried to minimize the damage it caused, about how it had looked at her with something that might have been hope. "I don't think it would hurt us," she said quietly. "I think it's been waiting for someone to see past the chains and remember that it's a person." They left the arena, but Sora could not sleep that night. She spent hours researching everything she could find about dragons. Most sources agreed they had been magnificent beings of great intelligence and wisdom. They had not been conquerors, but teachers and protectors. So why had they disappeared? And why was this one being used as a weapon for entertainment? The next morning, Sora made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. She contacted the arena's owners and requested a private meeting. She claimed to be interested in purchasing their specimen for scientific research. Dojin thought she had lost her mind. "Sora, even if they agree to sell, how much could a dragon possibly cost? We don't have that kind of money." She looked at her friend with determination she had never felt before. "Then we'll find a way, because leaving that creature in chains is not an option." In the depths of Nexus Station, Varric the Last lifted his head and stared at the arena's ceiling. For the first time in decades, something had stirred in his ancient heart. Someone had looked at him and seen not a monster, but a person in pain. Someone had looked at him with kindness. 3 days later, Sora sat across from Grix, the alien crime boss who owned the arena. His skin was gray and bumpy like old leather. 4 red eyes studied her with suspicion. "You want to buy my dragon?" Grix asked, his voice like grinding metal. "That creature is worth more than your entire ship, human." Sora kept her face calm, but her heart was racing. "I represent the Human Federation's Xenobiology Department. We're prepared to offer substantial compensation for this unique research opportunity." Beside her, Dojin shifted nervously. They had spent 2 days preparing for this meeting. Park Taeho, their ship's engineer, waited outside with forged research. "Documents and transfer authorizations." "Research?" Grix laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "That beast makes me more money in one night than your Federation sees in a year. Why would I sell?" Sora had prepared for this. Because keeping an extinct species hidden will eventually attract unwanted attention. The Galactic Council has strict laws about concealing archaeological discoveries. If they find out you've been hiding a living dragon... She let the threat hang in the air. Grix's red eyes narrowed. "How much?" he finally asked. The number Sora gave him was everything she had. Her life savings, money borrowed from friends, even her retirement fund. It was barely enough to buy a small transport ship, let alone a creature this rare. Grix laughed again. "Not even close, human. My dragon is worth 100 times that amount." Sora's heart sank. She had known it was a long shot, but hearing it confirmed felt like a punch to the stomach. "However," Grix continued, "I am a businessman. The creature has been difficult lately. Refuses to fight properly, the crowd is getting bored. Maybe a change of ownership would be profitable." He leaned forward. "I will accept your offer, plus one condition. If your research proves unsuccessful and the creature dies, I want the body. Dragon scales and bones are worth a fortune." Sora wanted to refuse. The idea of this monster profiting from Varric's death made her sick, but she had no choice. "Agreed," she said. 2 hours later, Sora stood in the arena's lower levels where Varric was kept between fights. The smell of burned metal and old blood filled the air. The dragon lay on his side, massive chains still wrapped around his body. Up close, he was even more magnificent and heartbreaking. His scales were scarred from years of electric shocks. His clipped wings hung uselessly, but his eyes were alert and watching her approach. "Hello," Sora said softly. "My name is Han Sora. I'm here to help you." The dragon's head lifted slightly. When he spoke, his voice was deep and ancient, like distant thunder. "Help?" The word came out carefully, as if he had forgotten how to use it. "Why would a small human help one such as I?" "Because everyone deserves freedom," Sora replied. "And because what they're doing to you is wrong." For a long moment, the dragon stared at her. Then something incredible happened. His eyes, which had been hard with pain and anger, grew soft. A sound escaped his throat that might have been a sob. "I had begun to believe that kindness was extinct in this galaxy," he whispered. Du-Jin and Tae-Ho worked quickly to attach the transport restraints. These were different from the electric chains. They would hold Varek safely during the trip, to their ship without causing pain. "This may feel strange," Tae-Ho warned as he activated the transfer field. "But it won't hurt." The dragon nodded. "I trust you." Those 3 words carried the weight of centuries. This ancient being, who had been tortured and used as a weapon, was choosing to trust humans he had just met. The transfer to the new soul took 6 hours. Varek remained calm throughout, even though he could have broken free from the transport restraints at any time. When they finally reached the ship's cargo bay, Sora personally removed each restraint. The moment the last chain fell away, Varek did something that shocked everyone present. Instead of stretching his massive wings or roaring in triumph, he lowered his enormous head until it nearly touched the deck. "I am Varek, last son of the Dragon Imperium," he said formally. "By flame and wing, by star and void, I swear my life to yours, Han Sora. You have given me what I thought lost forever." "What's that?" Sora asked. "Hope." Then the great dragon began to cry. His tears were not like human tears. They fell like drops of liquid fire, each one crystallizing as it hit the deck. The crystals glowed with inner light, beautiful and heartbreaking. "I thought I was the only one left," Varek whispered between sobs. "For 3,000 years, I believed my people died for nothing, that we were forgotten, that no one would ever again show mercy to the weak or kindness to the suffering." Sora reached out and touched one of his massive claws. Her hand looked tiny against his armored hide. "You're not alone anymore," she said, "and your people are not forgotten." Captain Lee Jinsu arrived in the cargo bay an hour later. He stared at the dragon in amazement. "Sora, what have you done?" he asked. "The right thing," she replied. Varek raised his head. "Captain Lee Jinsu of the vessel New Soul, I greet you with the ancient words of my people. May your journey be swift and your landing soft." Jinsu blinked in surprise. "He knows my name?" "Dragons have perfect memory," Varek explained. "I heard your crew speak of you with respect and affection. That tells me much about your character." "Can you really breathe fire?" Tae-Ho asked, with the curiosity of an engineer. Varek's expression grew sad. "Yes, but for too long, my fire has been used only to cause pain. I would prefer to speak of other things." Sora understood. "What would you like to talk about?" "Your species fascinates me," Varek said. "In all my years of captivity, I studied the various races that came to watch my torment. Most showed only cruelty or indifference. But the few humans I observed were different. They looked uncomfortable with the violence. Some even left early." "We're not perfect," Sora admitted. "Humans can be cruel too." "Perhaps, but you are the Only species that looked at me and saw a person rather than a weapon. That is significant. As the new soul departed Nexus Station, Varric settled into the cargo bay that would serve as his temporary home. For the first time in decades, he felt safe. But their peace would not last long. Even now, word was spreading through the galaxy's criminal networks. A human crew had purchased the last dragon. Some would see this as an opportunity, others would see it as a threat. The galaxy was about to remember why dragons had once been both feared and revered, and why humans, despite being small and seemingly weak, might be the most dangerous species of all, not because of their weapons or their technology, but because of their capacity for kindness in a universe that had forgotten what kindness meant. Varric had been aboard the new Soul for 2 weeks when the nightmares began. Sora found him in the cargo bay one morning, his massive form trembling. The crystallized tears around him glowed brighter than usual, and his breathing was quick and shallow. "Varric," she called softly. "Are you all right?" The dragon's ancient eyes opened. "I am remembering," he said. "For the first time in centuries, I feel safe enough to remember. And the memories hurt more than any chain ever did." Sora sat down on a nearby crate. Over the past 2 weeks, she and Varric had grown close. He was brilliant, gentle, and funny, in ways that surprised her. Nothing like the monster the arena had made him pretend to be. "Would it help to talk about it?" she asked. Varric was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak. 3,000 years ago, my people were not the last of anything. We were teachers, protectors, guardians of the young races. When the Zenthari developed spaceflight, it was dragons who taught them navigation. When plague threatened the Kaltharan, homeworld, dragons who found the cure. His voice grew heavy with sadness. We believed that wisdom and kindness could guide the galaxy to a better future. We were wrong. What happened? Fear happened. Jealousy. The races we had helped grew strong and decided they no longer needed teachers. Some began to whisper that dragons were too powerful, that we would one day enslave them all. Varric's claws scraped against the metal deck. The Kaltharan hegemony led the alliance against us. Ironic, since we had saved their entire species from extinction only centuries before. They called it the Great Purge. They said it was necessary for galactic peace. Sora felt sick. They committed genocide. They hunted us across 100 worlds. Dragons do not reproduce quickly, and we are not a warlike people. We tried to hide, to flee to distant stars. But there was nowhere they could not reach. One by one, my people fell. How did you survive? I was young then, barely past my first molting. My parents hid me in a stasis pod on a dead world. I slept for 2,000 years while the galaxy forgot we ever existed. When I finally woke, I was alone. Dojin entered the cargo bay carrying his morning coffee. He had gotten used to finding Sora talking with Varric. The dragon fascinated the entire crew. "Good morning, Varric," Dojin said. "How are you feeling?" "Better, friend Dojin. Sora was helping me remember better times." "Were there better times?" Dojin asked, settling down to listen. Varric's expression grew wistful. "Oh yes. I remember when the first Zenthari ships reached their moon. Their pilots were terrified of the vast emptiness of space. My grandfather flew alongside them, his wings spread wide to catch the solar wind. He sang the old navigation songs to guide them home. "Dragons can fly through space?" Sora asked in wonder. "We are creatures of star and void as much as any world. Space holds no fear for us. We taught that lesson to many species back when teaching was our purpose." The ship's communication system suddenly activated. Captain Jinsu's voice filled the cargo bay. "All hands to stations. We have incoming ships on an intercept course. Unknown configuration, but heavily armed." Varric's head snapped up. May I see? They rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, 6 sleek warships approached in attack formation. Their hulls were black metal, marked with the spiral symbol of the Caltharan hegemony. "This is Admiral Corvin of the Hegemony Fleet," came a cold voice. Over the comm. "Human vessel, you are harboring a dangerous creature. Surrender it immediately or face the consequences." Captain Jinsu looked at Sora, then at Varek, who had somehow squeezed his massive form onto the bridge. "This is Captain Lee Jinsu of the research vessel New Soul. We carry no dangerous creatures, only scientific specimens. Do not lie, human. We know you have taken the dragon from Nexus Station. That creature is a threat to galactic peace. It must be contained or destroyed." Varek's eyes blazed with ancient anger. "Contained," he said quietly, "just as they contained my entire species." "What do you want to do?" Jinsu asked. Sora looked at her friend. Despite his size and power, Varek had been nothing but gentle with the crew. He helped Teho with repairs, using his precise flame control to weld metal. He told stories to junior officers during the night shift. He had even learned to play chess, though he let others win so they would keep playing with him. "We don't surrender, friends," she said firmly. The Kaltharan ships moved closer. Their weapons began to charge. "Human vessel, this is your final warning. Surrender the dragon, or we will take it by force." That was when Varek made his choice. The dragon stood to his full height on the bridge. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority that had been sleeping for 3 millennia. "This is Varek, last son of the Dragon Imperium. I know you, Admiral Corvin. Your grandfather's grandfather stood with the alliance that murdered my people. And now you dare threaten the first beings to show me kindness in 3,000 years? The dragon speaks?" Corvin sounded shocked. "I speak, Admiral. I remember, and I choose." Without warning, Varek moved. His massive form flowed through the ship's corridors like liquid starlight. He reached the main airlock and triggered the emergency release. "Varek, no!" Sora screamed, but it was too late. The dragon spread his wings in the vacuum of space. They were magnificent, spanning nearly 50 meters tip to tip. The clipped sections had somehow regenerated during his time aboard the New Soul. Scales that had been dull with pain now blazed with inner fire. For the first time in centuries, Varek flew free among the stars. The Kaltharan ships opened fire. Immediately, energy beams that could destroy a small moon converged on the dragon's position. But Varek was no longer the chained creature from the arena. He moved through space like he was born there, dodging between laser blasts with impossible grace. And when he finally opened his mouth, what emerged was not the tortured flames of captivity. This was the true fire of a dragon, white-hot plasma that made stars look dim. It struck the lead Kaltharan ship and turned its armor to vapor. But the most incredible thing was what happened next. The other Kaltharan ships tried to shoot at the New Soul, probably thinking the humans were controlling the dragon somehow. Varek would not allow it. His fire carved through space with impossible precision. He destroyed weapons without touching the ship's life support. He melted armor around vital systems without harming the crews inside. In less than 5 minutes, 6 of the hegemony's most advanced warships were floating helpless in space. Then, Varek flew back to the New Soul and somehow squeezed through the airlock again. "How?" Sora gasped when she saw him. "Dragons are very flexible," he said calmly, as if he had not just defeated an entire fleet by himself. Admiral Corvin's voice crackled over the comm, filled with fear and confusion. "What are you?" he whispered. Varek answered with words that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. "I am what your people tried to destroy. I am the memory of what you lost when you chose fear over wisdom. And I am proof that some species still choose kindness over cruelty." The dragon looked at Sora with profound gratitude. "The humans freed me from my chains, Admiral. Not to use me as a weapon, but simply because it was right. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to remember what right means. The message traveled faster than light across the galaxy. Within hours of the battle, every major news network was broadcasting the same impossible story. A dragon lived. A dragon fought alongside humans, and 6 Caltharan warships had been defeated, without a single death. Sora watched the reports from the New Souls Communication Center. Her hands shook as she saw her own species being discussed like a threat to galactic peace. "The humans have weaponized an extinction-class entity," declared Senator Vex of the Zenthari Republic. "This cannot be allowed to continue. Humanity must be contained before they unleash this creature on innocent worlds," added Councillor Thane of the Rigelian Union. One by one, 17 different species declared humanity a galactic threat. Trade agreements were canceled. Human colonies were warned to prepare for quarantine. The Federation's ambassadors were recalled from every major world. "They're afraid," Dojin said quietly. "They've spent 3,000 years believing dragons were extinct, and now one appears fighting for humans." Varek had been unusually quiet since the battle. He lay in the cargo bay, his massive head resting on his claws. His eyes held an ancient sadness that even Sora's kindness could not touch. "This is my fault," he said when she came to check on him. "My actions have brought doom upon your people." "Your actions saved us," Sora replied firmly. "Those ships would have destroyed us if you hadn't intervened. But now the galaxy sees humans as they once saw dragons, too dangerous to live freely." Captain Jinsu entered the cargo bay with urgent news. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. President Yoon Mi-young wants to speak with both of you." The holographic image of Earth's president appeared in the center of the room. Yoon Mi-young was a small woman with steel in her eyes. She looked at Varek without fear. "You must be the dragon causing all this excitement," she said. Varek bowed, his great head respectfully. "President Yoon, I am honored to meet the leader of the people who showed me kindness." "The honor is mine," she replied. "But we have a problem. Half the galaxy wants to go to war with us because of you." "Then perhaps I should leave," Varek said sadly. "Find some distant star where my presence will not endanger your species." "Absolutely not," the president said firmly. "Humanity doesn't abandon friends. But we need to change the narrative before this gets worse." She turned to Sora. "Dr. Han, I'm promoting you to Special Ambassador for Xenobiological Affairs. Your first mission is to help our friend here tell his side of the story." "Ma'am, the galaxy is afraid because they don't understand. They see a weapon instead of a person. We need to remind them that dragons were once teachers and protectors, not destroyers." Varek lifted his head with sudden interest. "You would allow me to speak freely to the galaxy?" "More than that," President Yoon smiled. "We're going to make sure everyone listens." 2 days later, every communication network in the galaxy received the same transmission. It began with an image that had not been seen for 3 millennia. A dragon in his full majesty, wings spread among the stars. When Varek spoke, his voice carried the authority of ages. It resonated in languages that had not heard draconic tones for thousands of years. "I am Varek the Last, final son of the Dragon Imperium. For 3,000 years you have lived in a galaxy that my people helped to build. You speak words with draconic roots. You use mathematics we taught your ancestors. You travel paths through space that dragons first mapped." The transmission included holographic records from Varek's perfect memory. Images of dragons teaching young Zenthari pilots to navigate by starlight. Dragons sharing medical knowledge that saved the Caltharan homeworld from plague. Dragons protecting trade routes from pirates and guiding lost ships home. "My people were not conquerors," Varek continued. "We were guardians, teachers, friends to all who reached for the stars. And when fear grew stronger than gratitude, when political ambition overcame wisdom, you hunted us to extinction. The next images were harder to watch. Dragons fleeing, burning. Worlds. Families separated as warships closed in. The last desperate attempts to hide eggs and younglings on distant planets. I survived by accident, not design. For 2,000 years I slept in stasis while the galaxy forgot what dragons truly were. When I woke, alone and friendless, I was captured by criminals who saw only a weapon to be used for profit. The recording showed Varek's time in the arena. The electric chains, the forced battles, the crowds cheering as beings died by dragonfire. Sora felt tears on her cheeks as she watched her friends' torment. For decades, I believed that kindness had died with my people, that mercy was extinct in this cold galaxy. I was forced to kill for entertainment, to burn the innocent for the pleasure of crowds. I began to believe that perhaps the Alliance was right. Perhaps dragons were too dangerous to live. Varek's voice grew stronger, filled with wonder. Then, I met a human named Han Sora. She looked at me with something I had forgotten existed: compassion. She saw past the chains and the arena to the person trapped inside. She spent her life savings to purchase my freedom, not to use me as a weapon, but simply because leaving me in chains was wrong. The transmission showed Sora's first meeting with Varek, her small form approaching the massive chained dragon. The moment their eyes met across the arena, humanity alone remembered what the galaxy had forgotten. That strength is not measured by the fear you inspire, but by the kindness you show to those who cannot defend themselves. That true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in choosing to protect. The final part of the transmission was a message that would be remembered for millennia. To the species that now call humanity a threat, I say this: you are correct. They are dangerous. Not because they control me, no one controls a dragon, but because they possess something far more powerful than any weapon. They possess the courage to do what is right, even when it costs them everything. Varek's image filled the screen, his ancient eyes blazing with conviction. I have sworn an oath to these people, not as their weapon, but as their friend. If you seek to harm them for the crime of showing mercy, you will face the last dragon in battle. But more importantly, you will face the judgment of history. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. You can choose the path that led to the Great Purge, the path of fear, hatred, and genocide. Or you can choose the path that humans showed me, the path of compassion, understanding, and hope. The transmission ended with Varek and Sora working together in the ship's garden, the massive dragon carefully tending tiny flowers, while the small human explained proper watering techniques. It was a simple scene, but it showed something profound: predator and prey choosing friendship over fear. Within hours, the galaxy's response was divided. Some species doubled down on their hostility, calling the broadcast propaganda. But others began to remember the old stories about dragons, about the knowledge they had shared and the civilizations they had protected. Most importantly, ordinary beings across hundreds of worlds began to ask uncomfortable questions. If dragons had once been teachers and protectors, why had they been hunted to extinction? What else had their governments hidden from them? For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy was having a conversation about what dragons had really been, and what humanity might represent for the future. In her quarters aboard the New Soul, Sora watched the news feeds with growing hope. Change was coming. It would not be easy, and many would resist it. But seeds of doubt had been planted in the certainty of ages. The galaxy was starting to remember, and sometimes remembering was the first step toward redemption. The combined fleet assembled at the edge of Earth's solar system like a storm of metal and fire. 800 warships from 12 different species, the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Their weapons could turn planets to dust. Their shields could withstand the heat of stars. Admiral Corvin commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Victory. The same man whose ships Varric had disabled now led a force meant to end the dragon threat forever. All ships report. "Ready, Admiral," his aide announced. "The human homeworld is defenseless before us." But Corvin hesitated. The dragon's words still echoed in his mind. The recordings had shown things that challenged everything he believed about the Great Purge. Still, orders were orders. "Begin the advance," he commanded. On Earth, President Yoon Mi-young stood in the United Nations building addressing an emergency session. Representatives from every human colony filled the Great Hall, their faces grim with the knowledge of what approached. "The combined fleet will reach Earth in 18 hours, she announced. "They demand we surrender Varric for processing or face total annihilation." Angry voices rose from the assembly. Some called for resistance. Others demanded they give up the dragon to save their world. President Yoon raised her hand for silence. "Dr. Han Sora has proposed an alternative," she said. "One that may seem impossible, but which I believe represents our only hope." Sora stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the massive chamber. Behind her, a holographic display showed the approaching fleet. "We invite them to land," she said simply. The chamber erupted in shock and disbelief. "You want to surrender?" shouted Representative Park from the Mars colony. "No," Sora replied firmly. "I want to show them something they've never seen before. I want them to meet Varric not as a weapon or a threat, but as a person. They'll kill him the moment they arrive," protested Representative Kim from Europa Station. "They might try," Sora admitted. "But Varric has agreed to take that risk. He believes, as I do, that some truths can only be learned through direct experience. President." Yoon took the podium again. "The vote is simple. Do we fight a battle we cannot win, or do we trust in the power of understanding to change minds?" The debate raged for hours. In the end, the vote was close, 51% in favor of Sora's plan. Earth would open its arms to the very fleet that came to destroy it. The invitation went out on all frequencies. Earth requested that each species send representatives to witness a formal cultural exchange. The dragon would share the true history of his people in return for safe passage. Many in the fleet thought it was a trap, but curiosity won over caution. If the humans were foolish enough to allow an inspection of their weapon, why not take advantage? 12 hours later, shuttles from dozens of worlds descended toward Earth's surface. They landed at the hastily constructed meeting site in New Geneva, a simple amphitheater built in the shadow of the Alps. Varric waited in the center of the space, his massive form impossible to ignore. But something was different about him now. The sadness that had haunted his eyes was replaced by quiet dignity. He wore no chains, bore no weapons. He simply stood and waited. The alien delegates entered cautiously, many in full environmental suits despite the breathable atmosphere. They expected to see a monster barely contained by human technology. Instead, they found a dragon playing chess with a young human girl named Oh Soo-jin. "Your move," Varric said gently as Soo-jin studied the board. The girl, no more than 12 years old, bit her lip in concentration. She moved her knight, immediately realizing it was a mistake. "I can take it back if you want," Varric offered kindly. "No," Soo-jin said with determination. "Fair is fair." Varric captured the knight, but his next move deliberately weakened his position. Soo-jin's face lit up as she saw the opportunity. Admiral Corvin watched this exchange in confusion. This was the fearsome creature that had defeated his entire squadron? This gentle being who let a child win at chess? "Welcome, Admiral," Varric said without looking up from the game. "Would you care to join us? Soo-jin has been teaching me human strategies." "I came here to evaluate a threat," Corvin said uncertainly. "Of course you did," Varric replied. "And what have you found?" The dragon's perfect memory allowed him to recall every detail of the approaching delegates. He knew their names, their histories, their fears. But instead of using this knowledge as a weapon, he used it to connect. To the Zenthari representative, he spoke of the first time her ancestors had seen their homeworld from space, tears of joy in their eyes. To the Rigelian delegate, he recounted how dragons had once saved their colony ships from a solar storm. Most powerfully, he shared memories that had been locked away for millennia, the true history of the galaxy before the Great Purge. "Your people were dying," he told the Caltharan delegation, his voice gentle but unwavering. "A plague that turned your blood to poison. My grandmother spent 50 years of her life developing the cure. She died the day after it was completed, her own life force spent in the effort." The lead Caltharan delegate, a warrior named Thex, looked uncomfortable. That is not in our histories." "No," Varek agreed sadly. "It would not be. Heroes are easier to kill when you forget they were heroes." He activated a holographic display drawn from his genetic memory. The images showed dragons working alongside Caltharan scientists, sharing knowledge freely, celebrating together when the cure was found. "This is my grandmother, Syrinx the Wise," Varek said as the hologram showed an ancient female dragon carefully, explaining chemical processes to eager Caltharan students. "She loved your people as if they were her own children." Thex stared at the image. In the dragon's face, he could see the same gentle intelligence that marked Varek's own features. 50 years later, Varek continued, Caltharan warships hunted her children through the void. They called it necessary for galactic peace. The silence that followed was deafening. Young Sujin looked up from the chessboard. "Varek, why are all these people here?" "They came to decide if humans should be punished for being kind to me," Varek explained honestly. Sujin frowned. "That's stupid. Being kind is good." "Out of the mouths of babes," whispered the Zenthari delegate. For 3 days, the gathering continued. Delegates who had come expecting to see a weapon instead found themselves learning from a teacher. Varek shared mathematical formulas that could revolutionize space travel. He revealed the locations of lost colonies that had been searching for centuries. Most importantly, he answered every question with patience and wisdom. But the real breakthrough came when Thex approached Varek privately on the 3rd evening. "My family name is Corex," he said quietly. "Does that mean anything to you?" Varek's eyes widened with recognition and wonder. "Corex? Young Thex, you are descended from Commander Corex the Bold, are you not?" "Yes. He is remembered as a great warrior." "He was more than that," Varek said warmly. "He was my grandmother's friend. When the plague was at its worst, and many Caltharians turned to despair, Corex stood with the dragons. He convinced his people to try the cure when many thought it was a trick." Varek activated another memory crystal. This one showed a young Caltharian in primitive armor standing beside Syrinx as she distributed the life-saving medicine. "Your ancestor helped save his entire species," Varek said. "Syrinx spoke of him often. She said he had the rarest quality in the galaxy, the courage to trust when trust was dangerous." Thex stared at the hologram of his ancestor working alongside dragons. Tears ran down his face as 3,000 years of lies crumbled around him. "What have we done?" he whispered. "What fear makes all beings do," Varek replied gently. "But it is not too late to choose a different path." That night, Thex sent a message to the combined fleet. His words would change the course of galactic history. The dragons were not our enemies. They were our teachers, our healers, our friends, and we murdered them for the crime of being better than us. I will not repeat that mistake with humanity. One by one, other delegates reached the same conclusion. The species that had come to Earth seeking war found themselves remembering what they had lost when dragons died. The combined fleet began to break apart as ships departed for home. Some species maintained their hostility, but the united front had shattered. Humanity would survive. And in the ruins of ancient prejudice, something new was being born, a galaxy learning to remember what wisdom looked like. 6 months after the gathering at New Geneva, the galaxy was a different place. The Nexus Accords had been signed by 47 species, establishing new laws that protected all sentient beings from slavery and torture. The underground fighting. Arenas were shut down. The criminal syndicates that had profited from suffering found their customers disappearing. But the real change ran deeper than laws and treaties. On the space station New Geneva, built specifically for interspecies cooperation, Dr. Han So-Ra walked through gardens that had become a symbol of hope across the galaxy. Plants from hundreds of worlds grew together in harmony, tended by beings who had once considered each other enemies. At the center of the garden sat Varek, carefully watering delicate flowers from the Zenthari homeworld. His massive claws, which had once melted starship armor, now moved with impossible gentleness around the tiny blossoms. "The Caltharian delegation arrived this morning," So-Ra told him as she approached. "Admiral Corvin personally requested a meeting with you." Varek's head turned toward her, his ancient eyes warm with affection. Corvin has traveled far in these past months, both in distance and in understanding. It was true. The admiral who had once led fleets to destroy dragons now worked tirelessly to uncover the truth about the Great Purge. His research had revealed documents buried for millennia, proving that the dragon genocide had been built on lies and fear-mongering. "There's something else," So-Ra said, settling down on her favorite bench. "The Zenthari Council wants to name you their chief science advisor, and the Rigelian Union is offering you honorary citizenship." Varek chuckled, a sound like distant thunder mixed with warmth. "Generous offers. But I have everything I need right here." He gestured with one wing toward the garden around them. Beings from dozens of species worked and learned together. Human children played with young Zenthari, while their parents discussed philosophy with Rigelian scholars. "Besides," Varek continued, "someone needs to tend the earth roses. They are remarkably stubborn plants." So-Ra smiled. In the months since New Geneva Station's construction, she had watched her friend blossom in ways she never could have imagined. The broken creature from the arena had been replaced by a being of profound wisdom and gentle humor. "So-Ra," Varek said quietly, "do you ever regret your choice? Your life could have been so much simpler if you had walked away from that arena." She considered the question seriously. Her old life as a simple researcher seemed like a distant dream now. As the first human ambassador to the reformed Galactic Council, her days were filled with complex negotiations and delicate diplomacy. But then she looked at Varek, healthy and free, sharing his ancient knowledge with beings who hung on his every word. She thought of the children who would grow up in a galaxy where kindness mattered more than fear. "Never," she said firmly. "Not for a single moment." A chime sounded across the station, announcing the arrival of the Caltharian delegation. So-Ra and Varek made their way to the main conference hall where representatives from across the galaxy waited. Admiral Corvin stood at the center of the room, but he was not alone. Beside him was an elderly Caltharian female wearing the robes of a grand historian. "Honored friends," Corvin began, "I present Grand Historian Vex, keeper of the true archives." The elderly female stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "For 3,000 years, my order has guarded secrets we were forbidden to share. Documents that proved the dragons were innocent of the crimes used to justify their extinction." She activated a holographic display that filled the chamber. Ancient documents appeared in the air, written in multiple languages and marked with official seals. "The plague that threatened Calthara was not natural," she revealed. "It was created by extremist factions who wanted to break our alliance with the dragons. When dragons cured the disease, these same factions claimed it proved. Dragons were responsible for creating it. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The conspiracy had run deeper than anyone imagined. The evidence was buried, the witnesses silenced. But we kept the records, waiting for a day when the galaxy might be ready for truth. Varric listened to the revelations with profound sadness but no surprise. "I suspected as much," he said quietly. "My people were too trusting. We never imagined that beings we had helped would fabricate evidence to destroy us." "There is more," Vex continued. "The dragon archives that Varric mentioned, we know where they are." The chamber fell silent. The lost knowledge of the Dragon Imperium was legendary. Technologies that could revolutionize space travel, medical, advances that could cure diseases thought incurable, scientific discoveries that could unlock the secrets of the universe itself. 7 hidden worlds, Vex said, protected by stasis fields and quantum locks. Only a dragon's biometric signature can open them. All eyes turned to Varric. He alone held the key to knowledge that could advance galactic civilization by thousands of years. "And what would you do with this knowledge?" Varric asked carefully. It was young Su Jin who answered. Now 13 and serving as a junior ambassador, she had grown wise beyond her years. "Share it," she said simply. "Just like you've been sharing everything else. Make the galaxy smarter, kinder, better." Varric's expression softened as he looked at the human girl who had become like family to him. "And if some species use this knowledge for war, for conquest?" "Then we'll deal with that when it happens," Sora replied. "But we can't let fear of misuse prevent us from helping people." The dragon was quiet for a long moment, considering. Then he nodded slowly. "Very well. But I have conditions." He stood to his full height, commanding the attention of every being in the chamber. "The knowledge will be shared freely with all species, not hoarded by the powerful. It will be used to heal, to explore, to build, never to destroy, and it will be administered by a council that includes representatives from every member species, with humans holding permanent seats." "Why humans?" asked the Rigelian delegate. Varric's answer would be quoted in history books for millennia to come. "Because they alone proved that they could look at the most powerful creature in the galaxy and see not a weapon to be used, but a person to be freed. They taught me that the strongest force in the universe is not the fire that destroys, but the hand that reaches out in kindness to lift up the fallen." The vote was unanimous. 1 year later, Sora stood in her garden on New Geneva Station, watching the sunset through the massive transparent dome. 3 suns painted the sky in shades of gold and purple, while ships from dozens of worlds came and went in peaceful commerce. Varric lay beside her, his massive form relaxed in contentment. Between his claws, he held a datapad showing reports from the first Dragon Archive to be opened. The medical knowledge contained within had already led to cures for 7 previously incurable diseases. The Xanthari completed their first dragon-guided stellar survey today, Varric reported. They discovered 3 new habitable worlds, all uninhabited and perfect for colonization. "Any interest from potential settlers?" Sora asked. "Humans, actually. The colony ships launch next month." Sora smiled. In the past year, humanity had gone from galactic pariahs to trusted partners in dozens of major projects. Human diplomats were known throughout the galaxy for their fairness and compassion. "Do you think your people would be proud of what we've accomplished?" she asked. Varric considered the question seriously. "My people believed that the greatest achievement was not conquering the galaxy, but teaching it to conquer itself, to overcome fear, hatred, and prejudice through wisdom and kindness." He looked around the garden, where beings from across the galaxy worked and learned together in harmony. "I think they would say we have made a good beginning." As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, Sora reflected on the journey that had brought them here. It had started with one woman's refusal to walk away from suffering. It had continued with a dragon's choice to trust rather than seek revenge, and it had culminated in a galaxy learning to remember what it meant to be wise. "Varek," she said quietly, "what do you think happens next?" The dragon's eyes held the wisdom of ages and the hope of tomorrow. "Next, dear friend, we continue to prove that kindness is the most powerful force in the universe. We explore new worlds with dragon knowledge and human compassion. We heal old wounds and build new alliances. We teach the next generation that the measure of strength is not in what you can destroy, but in what you choose to protect." He paused, watching a group of children from 6 different species playing together in the garden. "Next, we show the galaxy that the story is not about humans and dragons. It is about all of us, choosing every day to be better than our fears." As the night deepened around New Geneva Station, the garden glowed softly with bioluminescent plants from distant worlds. In that gentle light, a human woman and the last dragon in the galaxy sat together, tending flowers and dreams in equal measure. The galaxy remembered, and in remembering, it began to heal. The story of the human woman who showed kindness to a chained dragon had become the story of a civilization learning to choose love over fear, and that story was just beginning.